Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the February 22nd, 2024 public portion of the Halifax Water Board of Commissioners. We'll start with item 1 on the agenda, which is the ratification of the in-camera motions. Could I have someone make that motion?
I can move that.
Commissioner Russell, go ahead.
I move ratification of the in-camera motions.
Thank you. Seconder? Vice Chair Deagle-Gammon has seconded that. And all in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. We have the approval of the order of business as presented. Could I have somebody make that motion?
I can move.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
I can move the order of business as presented.
Thank you. Commissioner Kent, you'll second.
Second, yeah.
Any additions or deletions to the order of business? No, we'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. We have item 3, the approval of the minutes of the public meeting that was held on Thursday, January 25th, 2024. I have a motion to be put on the floor.
I'll move that, Madam Chair. Halifax Water Board approve the minutes of the meeting of the public meeting held on January 25th, 2024.
Thank you, Commissioner Kent. Do you have a seconder? Second. Vice Chair Deagle-Gammon has seconded. Any amendments required to the minutes as presented in the package?
Question?
No? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. Okay, I don't believe there's any business arising from the minutes. Let's check. We have a couple ongoing action items, but no business arising. Item 5, the proposed 2024-25 operating budget. I have a motion to be put on the floor. Commissioner Kolomeitsov, would you put the motion on the floor?
Sure, Madam Chair. I move that the Halifax Water Board approve the attached proposed 2024-25 operating budget, inclusive of the proposed 2024-25 budget for unregulated activities.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Commissioner Kent has seconded. Thank you very much. I believe we have a presentation from Louis de Montbron.
Yep. I'm not sure who is in control of the presentations. So good morning. Pleasure to be here this morning to present the 24-25 operating budget for Halifax Water. If we can go to the next slide. So I wanted to start by sort of taking us back to the beginning of the 23-24 fiscal year, where we the rates that we got approved and the budget that we got approved for 23-24 started with a operating deficit of about $2.4 million, about 1.7 million of a deficit for water, about $700,000 as a deficit for stormwater. So our starting point for the fiscal year for 24-25 was we were already sort of behind starting from 23-24. And then what we have in front of you is the budget for 24-25, which will really be the starting point for the rate application that we hope to file in the next 3 to 4 months. And that starting point through the rate application process will provide information about how our costs would be allocated, sort of the increases that we see across the board that we'll talk about today. And then that process is to go through the entire rate study, the rate application process based on our cost of service manual. And that would be used to generate the rates and the impact on different customers across the Halifax Water customer base. So this is the starting point for that process. Go to the next slide, please. So what we have here are the key assumptions that we worked through with on the revenue side. So we have seen over the last year increases in our consumption from our customers. So we have started and built that into our budget for 24-25. We've also carried on sort of the historic approach we've had to assume that there will be a certain number of new customers. On the water side, about 680 new customers. On the wastewater side, approximately 640. So that generates about $200,000 in new revenue for Halifax Water. We've also built into this budget an additional consumption increase of about 1%. So that recognizes that we will have new customers, and those new customers will be continuing to increase, drive an increase into our consumption. The other thing that we have built into this budget is an increase in our unregulated revenues. So those are primarily around septic tipping, leachate treatment, and the treatment of the effluent at the airport. And those increases are approximately $50,000. The next slide, please. So similar approach on the expenditure side, some of the key things that were built into the budget. So we have increases in electricity costs, fuel costs, and natural gas that generate approximately $340,000 in increased costs. We have built in an increase into our chemical prices based on where we are seeing our current contracts of about 5%. That represents an increase in our overall budget for chemicals of about $1.1 million. The next couple are key drivers that are outside of the sort of the operating control of the organization. So we have capital growth in our capital assets. We've built into 23-24 an increase of about 80 million in new assets. In 24-25, about 71 million in new assets. And what that does is it increases the amount of depreciation expense that needs to be built into our budget and will ultimately be built into our rates. So that generates an increase of about $1.7 million over last year. The other key driver of primarily related to capital is the amount of new debt we require to finance those assets. So we have built in new debt of approximately $80 million into our budget. We have assumed an interest rate of 5%, and those rates are set through the province of Nova Scotia, who is ultimately in control of the debt and the amount of interest that we pay. And that represents an increase in our principal and interest payments of that new debt of about 2.8 million. In addition to that is we have the debt that we issued last year, which now we will have a full year's cost in 24-25, and that is a further increase in our debt payments that we anticipate in the budget in 24-25. So in total, the amount our debt, principal, and interest payments have increased approximately 4.3% from last fiscal year. Go to the next slide, please. The other key driver that we have that drives the operating budget is salaries and wages. So in the current year, we've built in an estimated rate increase through our that we have built into our budget for our union contracts. So as you know, those contracts will be negotiated. The final settlement will be incorporated into our future costs. But right now, there's a base amount that we have added in to our budget. We've done similar increases for on the non-union side. The other piece that we have continued to manage is a growth in the FTEs, the number of employees that we anticipate hiring in the organization. So that we have built in an increase in new positions of approximately 38. We have assumed that those positions will not all be hired on April 1st. So that represents a full-time equivalent increase of approximately 26 people. At the bottom there's a little table that indicates sort of where the increases will be happening. As you'd expect, engineering and technology services is the biggest area that increases. We also have, through our capital program, able to allocate some of those salaries to our capital budget as they're used in the delivery of our capital program. So that represents an increase in total salaries of about 2.1 million. The impact on the operating budget is about 1.2 million. As part of our process, we also went through positions that had been approved in prior years that had not yet been filled. And through this process, we removed some of those positions and we'll look to how we're able to deliver the services or if the services that were originally anticipated that those salaries and those people would be delivering, whether or not they continue to move forward or go forward at the speed that we had originally anticipated. So there were reductions that were put through in this budget to those positions from previous years. You can go to the next slide, please. So at the beginning part of January, we presented an operating budget to our Audit and Finance Committee with a budgeted deficit of $25.8 million. As you can see, as we'll go through, the current deficit is that we're budgeting is approximately 18.7. So they have been fairly significant reductions from was originally presented at the beginning part of January. So this highlights some of the changes. So we have made adjustments to the revenue side. We've looked at the debt again and made changes. We did have to adjust the dividend grant in lieu that we paid to HRM to incorporate the agreement that was signed last year. As I mentioned earlier, we refined some of the salary numbers. We also looked at key areas in our operating budget and made some fairly significant changes. So some of those are highlighted here. Training and conferences being the most significant. We reduced the amount that it was originally proposed by $1.2 million. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the next couple of slides are just showing sort of the financial position by, in this case, all services, and then by water, wastewater, storm services. So it breaks down the overall numbers a little bit further. I won't go through them in detail, but I will point out at the bottom of this page, you see that the loss last year was the $2.3 million that we talked about earlier. So that was our starting point from the 23-24 budget. The current proposed budget is 18.682 deficit. So an increase in the deficit by approximately 16 million. We've talked through some of the key changes and the key drivers behind that. But you see the revenue increasing. You can see the expenditures we just talked about. the increase in salaries, the increase in chemical costs, and other costs driving into the increase in the expenditures. And then down at the bottom of the page, you see the increase that I just talked about in terms of the debt, where you can see the interest increasing by 2.3 million and the principal repayments increasing by approximately 1.9 million. If you can go to the next slide, please, Karen. So the next couple of pages are just the summary information by service. So I think we've talked about the individual components. Just to point out that for water, the deficit for 23-24 was 1.7. The current budget has a deficit of 9.2. If you can go to the next slide, please. For wastewater, we had a very small surplus in the current year. We're projecting a budget of 6.9, almost $7 million next year. And for stormwater, the next slide, please. And for stormwater, we started the year with a budgeted deficit of 671,000. We're budgeting a deficit of $2.5 million in 24-25. And if you can go to the next slide, please. So this page is showing sort of the accumulated surpluses the organization has over the last number of years. So if you look at the beginning for 22-23, sorry, we had total accumulated surpluses of almost $25 million. If you fast forward to the end of 23-24, based on our budget, we had accumulated surpluses of just about 15 million. Fast forward to the end of 24-25, assuming that there's no rate increase and this budget is passed, we would have accumulated deficits of $3.8 million. And then if you look at that same line right at the bottom, the single biggest issue there is on the stormwater side. And as we've talked about over the last number of years, we continue to require fairly significant increases in our stormwater revenues to be able to offset the cost of delivering that service. And if you can go to the last slide, please. So this is the top line, the deficits that we've just talked about. We have the next line down is the current revenues, and those revenues are for all customers across the services we provide. And then we show what the revenues for the organization would need to increase. So overall, our revenues would need to increase approximately 11%. And that would be to offset the deficits that we'll put forward to the board. The actual, as I mentioned earlier, the way that those increases would be allocated would be dependent on the cost of service manual and the rate application process, which is a very public process that and is a very extensive process that we go through in front of the Utility Review Board to get rates approved. So how that affects individual customers is something that will be affected as we go, or determined as we go through the rate application process. And if we can go to the last slide. So this is the motion that is on the floor for as we speak now. And then the second part of that is there's always alternatives for the board to provide additional guidance to the organization in terms of whether or not they would like further changes to that. So we always reference that the board does have alternatives in terms of being able to direct staff to do come back with something different.
Thank you, Louis. That was very informative. Any questions from the board? Go ahead, Commissioner Kolomeitsev.
Just on your slides, page 11, how long would these rate increases, um, how long would you expect before you would need to go once again for another rate increase, if you could estimate?
So we have traditionally gone for rate applications that are 2 years. So when we went last year, it was, or last time it was for rate increases for 22, 23, and 23, 24. So we've traditionally gone for 2 years. The if I had, if I could do it, I would happily go to the board for longer term rate increases, or do a longer term rate application. So as we go through that process, we'll look at how well we're able to predict those costs going into a third year. Because as we get out multiple years, of course, things get harder and harder to predict. So we traditionally it's 2 years that we'd go for, but if we could go for longer, that would be my preference.
Go ahead, Commissioner Kolomeitov.
You mentioned, I think, 680 new customers. How does that compare to previous years? And the second part of my question is just, how does the increase in customers affect how you're able to gauge, rate increases, costs? Obviously, you're earning some increases by having new customers, but what are the other costs that come with new customers and the growth that we're seeing in HRM right now?
So the 680 number that we use for water customers is based on sort of historical, looking back over the last number of years to see what we would have added year over year. So it's more of a historical trend as opposed to us trying very hard to predict the actual amount of growth that happens. The In terms of allocating and determining the impact on revenue, fairly straightforward to do because we have sort of a generic profile that we use for what an average residential customer would be. So we could build those into our models. In terms of the cost, I think the incremental cost of a new customer is relatively small. It's as the numbers start to accumulate, and then we have sort of significant capital increases, or after a number of years, you start to require additional staff, et cetera, to deal with the repairs and maintenance and deliver the services. You can see with the 38 new positions, they're spread out across the organization. And that's a reflection of, we need more people in the call center. We need more people in procurement to deal with the types of costs that we are incurring, and the increase in the business year over year.
And if I can add, just on the customer number, just for context, a multi-unit building with 100 units is a single customer in some of the math. So I know that the growth rate is increasing in the municipality, but we just want to make sure that you understand that it's same as a single dwelling unit.
Thank you,
Yes,
Kenneth.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Any other questions, Commissioner Kolomeitov? No? Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you. I had a somewhat related question. I was going to ask for the 680 new customers. Any idea of how many new households that might be?
I don't have that in front of me, Commissioner Duncan, but we can certainly dig that out if you require.
Okay, we'll take that as a follow-up you'll provide to Commissioner Duncan.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Kolomeitov.
Just one more. From page 22 of the board package, page 3 of the operating budget relating to stormwater, can you just speak to that very large percentage change for the 24-25 to 23-24 earnings? This one, in this case, loss for the year. It's the last column, bottom row.
So I have my version. It's on which page? Sorry.
Of the board package, it was on page 22.
Sorry, I don't have my board package open.
I'll go find the
Is it
page number.
the tables that you have?
Yes, it's the 10,000% one. It's page 3 of the operating budget. Yes, that one.
Yeah, that's it's an unfortunate calculation within Excel, going from a surplus of 70 to a deficit of 7 million. It's just the way it's calculated. We could certainly have put in greater than 100%, but it's just that's the basic math in terms of how that calculation works.
So nothing unusual here, just a
No,
big change there, but
it's just the swing between a surplus to a large deficit.
thank you.
Those numbers always catch my eye too, Commissioner Kolomeitsev. Okay, seeing no further questions, we have the motion on the floor. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry,
Aye.
Madam Chair,
Oh.
can we pause for a moment? I see there's
Yes.
a message in the chat from Patty. She's having, Commissioner Cuddle is having issues with her camera, but she has a question. Do you mind reading that off before we take the vote?
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Cuddle would like to know what the grant in lieu of is for and how it's calculated. Stormwater increases are concerning. Other than rate increases, are other revenues being sought to offset this cost? There's a national conversation happening about the need for new funding for infrastructure. Thank you for pointing that out. That question is to you, Louis, from Commissioner Cuddle.
So the grant in lieu is a negotiation that happens between the city and Halifax Water. It is designed to represent a payment to the city in lieu of the taxes that we would normally pay as a customer. It's similar to, as a taxpayer, it's similar to the process that would be used in the federal provincial government. So that was an agreement that was approved last year. It's a multi-year agreement that was approved by the Halifax Water Board and HRM Council. In terms of the, and I'm trying to find the next question.
Are
So
there any
are
other
they-
revenues that can offset the stormwater rate increases?
So we have built into this increases to on our non-regulated revenues, because that we can control. All other revenue increases would need to go through the Utility Review Board. We anticipate that we would look at every one of our charges to determine whether or not they're sufficient to offset our costs for providing that service. So that is something that we will be looking at. One of the aspects of this is whether or not some of our charges would be considered as increases in development type charges, which, as you know, the provincial government has mandated that we aren't allowed to increase. So some of it may get caught up in that process. But to answer the question, we will be looking at every one of our fees to make sure we are recovering the cost of providing those services.
Commissioner Cuddle has a follow-up. It's a grant in lieu charged at an NFP rate.
Sorry, I'm not sure what is that not for profit?
Yes, Commissioner Cuddle says not for profit rate.
I don't know for sure. I think that was something we had negotiated with HRM. They provided the calculation to us of what the charges would be to us. And we negotiated that with them. We did have we have sort of a phased in approach that we have negotiated, where it started off at one level and it's increasing gradually to get to the full rate that we would in our customer class be required to pay if we were taxable. So it's a phased in approach. It's not the full amount at this time. Whether or not it's a non-for-profit rate, I'm not 100% sure.
All right,
Commissioner
thank you.
Cuddle?
I think I have
Oh.
my mic on now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Camera's not working still, but I got the mic. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, Louis. I just want to note those stormwater increases are concerning, and putting that burden on our ratepayers is also concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cuddle. Okay, we will now call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Cuddle.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried. Thank you, Louis, and thank you to your entire team. That is a lot of effort, and we support your efforts as you come up with an excellent operating budget for the utility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, the proposed 2024 business plan. We have Kenda McKenzie to present.
Good morning. Do we do a presentation? Thank you, Kara. So just going to give an overview of our 24-25 annual business plan for everybody today. So just a snapshot of the current situation, and Louis had just gone through some of the budgetary numbers, but we had budgeted in the 23-24 for a deficit of $2.316 million. Currently today, as of December's review, we're operating at a surplus of $3.6 million. With the 2024-25 business plan, we're going to be targeting an increase and improvement in our ability to improve our capital delivery, continue our high level of maintaining operational service to our customers, meeting our regulatory obligations with the provincial government and the federal government, increase focused on mitigating some of the risks that we see within our systems, have a focus on some of the strategic initiatives that we're trying to deliver across the organization. And of course, continue to support our safety first culture, putting safety as a paramount driver with our employee base. Also, continue to focus on delivering and establishing our One Team, One Water initiative that we launched a few years ago. Next slide, please. So as you are aware, we have 4 pillars that comprise our business plan, and just go over briefly a summary of what those themes are as we go through the specific items outlined. So with our people and culture, the focus is on attraction and retention of a high quality workforce, develop and support an inclusive and respectful workplace for all employees, with the commitment to our customers and the communities that we live in promoting ongoing engagement with our customers. Under the health, safety, and environment pillar, health and safety of our employees, our contractors, and the public are our top priority. We are committed to the protection of the environment and providing sustainable, reliable services to our customers. The third pillar is financial and regulatory accountability. Within this pillar, the themes are focused on mindful management and operating our assets, balancing the value and our customer service while being fiscally responsible. And the last pillar is our operational excellence. With this theme, we are providing reliable, quality service to our customers with safety front of mind and efficiently building, operating, and maintaining our critical infrastructure. Now, next slide, please, as we go into some details about some of the programming that we're going to do this year to deliver these themes. Under the people and culture, We're going to enhance the overall employee experience with a focus on attraction and retention of high quality workforce. Oh, sorry. Yep, sorry, just 1 second. There we go. So with this, we're going to be fostering an inclusive workplace culture for our employees, creating connections to all of our employees. Under the developing a flexible talent management strategy, we have a goal here to attract and engage, develop, and retain critical skills and talented employees. And we'll be delivering programs to do so. Develop a transition plan to support the integrated service delivery model for the Burnside Operations Center. As most of you are aware, the Burnside Depot is going to be the integration of 4 of our existing depots into 1. And with that, we're going to be developing a comprehensive change management plan to mobilize all of our employees into that new Burnside Operations Center to ensure the smooth transition and seamless transfer of all staff and the service delivery to our customers from this new location. The next plan that we're going to be doing will be to continue and strengthen a positive and diverse workforce. And with this, we are going to continue to complete the initiatives outlined in our diversity, equity, and inclusion framework, with a focus on continuing to promote unconscious bias training for our new employees and current employees. The last programming that we're going to be doing under our people and culture this year will be continue to building institutional capacity to meet the challenges of growth in our infrastructure and operations. And as you're aware, we have a lot of significant programming to do and delivery of a capital budget that's an average of $135 million a year. And so we want to make sure that we're staffed and resourced accordingly. And that was demonstrated in our request for 38 new FTEs to make sure that we have the right people in place to do the work. Next slide, please. Under the pillar of health, safety, and environment, we're going to continue to develop and enhance our source water protection plans as needed for our watersheds. And through this, we'll be completing our Middle Muscatawbit source water protection plan and commencing the review and update of our Pockwalk source water protection plan. With the safety focus, we're going to continue the integration to the ISO 45001 program for safety, to improve and enhance our safety culture internally. With that, we'll be changing our current occupational health and safety manual to the safety management system, creating a more consistent and documents for employees to follow with their daily activities, and a more robust and focused training programs. The next will be to complete the multi-year roadmap for monitoring wastewater system flows. So with that, the projects that we'll be embarking on will identify existing monitoring and measuring information gaps, develop a plan for addressing those gaps. In doing this, it'll allow us to effectively and more efficiently be aware of where and have tools in place to detect and respond to system overflows. The other delivery here is the climate action plan and transitioning that to a 5-year capital roadmap. We will be finalizing our climate action plan this spring, and then using that as a basis to develop a list of projects to incorporate into our capital budget to deliver over the next 5 years. This will allow us to better track the initiatives that we have currently in place, be able to respond to future issues with climate change, and also align better with HRM's Halifax 2050 plan. The last under health and safety is to build a strategic, proactive plan for communications and stakeholder engagement. And with that, it will allow us to be more proactive in telling our story and expanding our communication channels and messaging with our broader community and customer base to better inform and educate everyone on our initiatives that we're doing within the utility. Next slide, please. Under the financial and regulatory accountability, We're going to update the long-term financial models using the latest projection and forecasting to reflect operational infrastructure requirements. And with that, as Louis alluded to, we'll be looking at going to the board to get change to our rates with a new rate application, building off of the long-term plan that we have with our integrated resource plan and the infrastructure needs that we know today. We're going to focus on executing contract and gain funding approval for the biosolids processing facility. We need to complete the biosolids facility upgrade and get the facility procurement process finalized and execute a contract with a preferred vendor. We're also going to be continuing to enhance our approach to capital delivery and project management. With that, we're going to be developing the project management practice and reporting group in the capital business unit, with the focus on developing processes and reporting capabilities in the next phase for the ongoing development of the engineering function at Halifax Water, and be better placed to deliver our average capital spend of $135 million a year. Finally, we'll be updating our integrated resource plan. And so the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board requires us to have a 30-year plan for our infrastructure needs to deliver asset renewal, growth, and compliance initiatives. And so we'll be securing a proponent to deliver that program for us. And also mindful that we are required to go back to the Nova Scotia Utility Review Board in October 2025 with an updated regional development charge. And so there'll be portions of this plan that will feed into that. So that'll be one of the key focuses from our engineering group. Next slide, please. Operational excellence. And so within this pillar, we're going to be commencing the detailed design of the Cogswell District Energy Project and hiring a consultant to commence the actual detailed design for the Energy Center to support that program. We'll continue with the Water Supply Enhancement Project that, as you are aware, is a multi-year project to address the upgrades needed at both JD Klein and Lake Major water treatment plants to deal with obsolescent issues and changes in our source water quality that are resulting from lake recovery and climate change. We'll also develop a framework for ongoing maintenance plans meeting defined asset service standards. We'll be reviewing with our operational teams and confirming maintenance standards and generating annual asset maintenance plans for both water and wastewater operations. We'll be developing standard operating procedures to support regulatory compliance and environmental management systems. With the expansion of our environmental management program to our collections and distribution systems, we're going to be working with those teams to standardize and develop a more robust list of standard operating procedures for the operation, maintenance, and emergency response to our CSO, our combined sewer overflow structures, and other critical aspects of our system within the utility. We're going to expand our operational readiness. We do have some good plans in place to deal with upsets in our system, but we're going to be working on enhancing our emergency management plan and the procedures that we need to follow and the resources required to continue service in the wake of emergencies and support the amazing employees that we have that do respond in time of natural disasters. We're going to continue to expand our utilization of systems to improve our operational efficiencies. And with that, we have our enterprise resource planning system in place, and we're going to be reviewing additional functionality and any enhancements that we can implement through that system to achieve a goal of streamlining processes, improve financial accountability, and organizational efficiencies. We'll be updating our enterprise risk management models. As a lot of you are aware, we have a risk registry, and we will be continuing to promote the risk management culture and embedding a lot more of those conversations within our day-to-day work and looking at the overall registry and making sure it's kept current. We will be strengthening our cybersecurity programming. With the completion of the municipal auditor general audit, we've been working towards the recommendations that were contained in that, and that will allow us to strengthen our cybersecurity systems and our ability to respond should an incident occur. Next slide. And as you would have been aware, and it was contained in the package, but also in January with the approval of the capital budget. Our capital budget that we'll be focusing on delivering this year has $152 million worth of projects, and these are just broken out by asset class, as you can see, with 46% being triggered by our wastewater systems, 12 from stormwater, and 41 from water. And then we're starting to see in these charts is our district energy as we start to grow that part of the business. And next slide, please. And so just wanted to highlight some of the capital budget projects that are substantial. Some of them are regular work that we do every year, but some of these are the bigger projects that you'll start to see us delivering this year. We again have the continuation of the water supply enhancement project. Our lead service line replacement program with coordination with HRM will be continuing this year. We're continuing to secure and develop the Bedford Burnside transmission main project. Cogswell District Energy has two aspects to it, both the relocation of the wastewater, water, and stormwater infrastructure that you see happening today, but also the installation and the distribution piping for the actual energy center itself will continue. A couple of the larger water projects will be working on the Peninsula Intermediate Transmission Main looping between Quinpool and Young, and Silver Sands Water Supply plant, looking at trying to take that that plant offline with an extension of a water main along Cow Bay Road. We continue to work with HRM on their integrated project list and coordinating our work with their streets program. The Mill Cove wastewater treatment facility will be starting preliminary design with the wastewater process, and overall plant upgrades will be a multi-year project that you'll see reoccurring in subsequent meetings. As I noted, the biosolids processing facility will be another big project that the teams will be working on. And then there's a suite of wastewater treatment facility upgrades and optimization projects that will be happening pretty much with all of our treatment facilities, making sure that they're operating to their highest ability, doing asset renewals within them, but also trying to optimize processes, knowing that we're going to be targeting the upgrades through the federal regulations for 2040. So we're continuing to work towards that path and that goal. Next slide, please. Just a few more projects. The team will be busy. We'll have our regular asset renewal for water and wastewater and stormwater systems, along with a suite of stormwater cross culverts and driveway culverts that will be replaced this year. Our trenchless rehabilitation program will continue with the focus on structural renewal of some of the assets to try and minimize disruption to the traveling public. And also we'll be seeing some inflow and infiltration benefits from doing the lining within these projects. We have a number of pump stations that will be programmed for upgrades this year. There's a few that we've been working on, but Herring Cove, Quigley's Corner, Autoport on Pleasant Street, Duffus, and Farmers Dairy, we're going to be doing more of a temporary rebuild that, if you recall, that was damaged during the floods in July. I noted as well the Burnside Operations Center that'll be continuing on its design path. And the integrated resource plan, we'll be updating that. And then Sullivan's Pond stormwater sewer replacement, again, that's a large project, again, phase 2 being integrated with HRM. Next slide, please. And you just saw this slide in Louis' presentation, but it's just over snapshot again of our operating budget. And there'll be a lot of programming that we're doing on an operational level this year. And then the next slide, plan on a page. And so basically this is just a snapshot of everything that we've just discussed, but we use this as a tool to as a quick reference for our staff, have it put around our different locations so that they can see that and be aware and mindful of some of the initiatives and programming that we're doing as we continue through this year. So next slide, and that concludes my presentation. I do want to thank the executive team in developing the business plan and the operating budget to support it. As well, they worked hard with their respective teams to deliver both of these, the operating budget and the business plan. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for a job well done and a lot of hard work. And any questions?
Thank you, Kenda. The board echoes that. Thanks. Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
Thank you. Through the chair, I just had a quick question, Kenda. When you talked about the IRP, you mentioned that I think you said you had to return to the UARB with the regional development charge the end of 25.
Yeah.
But I might have missed when you anticipate the IRP itself will be finished, or will that be at the same time?
So there'll be a bit of parallel processes. So the infrastructure master plan is one of the components of the integrated resource plan. And so that will be targeting to have that done because that's the chapters per se in the integrated resource plan that informs the regional development charge process. So a lot of the integration that we're doing with your teams at HRM right now and coordination is to have the data to support the infrastructure master plan, which focuses on growth and growth needs. Parallel, we'll be doing the compliance plan and the asset management plan. And those are the three drivers that feed into the integrated resource plan.
Perfect. Thank you.
Commissioner Russell.
Thank you very much. I noted in some of the conversation in the documents that we have an emphasis on emergency management. And I'm wondering if you are working with HRM and the province, our emergency management operations teams there, because having emergency management in silos is a horrible thing. So it'd be nice to see all of that integrated.
Yeah, so we are integrated with HRM. We attend the HRM emergency management meetings that are chaired by the CAO. As well, whenever there's events that are forecasted or planned, we are in close contact. In fact, been communicating with Erica Fleck this week with the pending rains that are coming. We coordinate messages. We also, if needed, depending on the nature of the event, will be physically in the HRM EOC. There are a number of initiatives that HRM and the province are going forward to try and have a lot of the data readily available in a GIS format or platform. And we are sharing those layers, so to speak, of our information and data so that they're aware of what's going on in our system. And we're also able to speak quite readily and easily with them. So we do have a very robust, and through our incident command system, our ICS process, when we stand up our emergency operations center, it's usually in that format, and it aligns with HRM standing up their incident command system and their emergency operations center as well.
Super. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? Oh, go ahead, Vice Chair Deagle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Kenda, for What a great presentation. I while you were doing your presentation, I had the other screen opened and I was matching it to the business plan. And what I wanted to say was that I really appreciate the structure in the business plan itself, because it talks about, here's what the initiative is, and then it says the objective, the rationale, and then the impact. So I really appreciate it being able to see it that way. I also like the condensed version of the PowerPoints. So I'm wondering if you're going to be able to send them to us.
Yes, we will be. Once we get, assuming we get a thumbs up today, we'll be going to print and have copies readily available. And I have to give props to Jeff Myrick in guiding us to this structure in this format. This is his good work.
Oh, it's really well done. I'll have to say, I really did enjoy it, and being able to see objective, rationale, impact. It was very clear. And even as a commissioner, a nice way to be able to share what is the real strategic work that's going to be happening. So I think that's awesome. The one question I had just around the Burnside Operations Center. When we talk about that, and it does have a significant capital cost and big part of the business plan. And I'm not sure if it's maybe Louis, or yourself, Kenda, but the projected savings of having 4 depots come into one in the Burnside Operations Center. Can someone speak a little bit to what the future savings that might be for the commission?
And I might defer that to Louis and or Reed.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I can start, perhaps, Vice Chair Deagle-Gammon. Well,
Hi, Reed.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for being here.
Okay. When we began this process, of course, we recognize of our current 4 depots that it's replacing. All of them are undersized. They don't have enough yard space. The Man Street depot has been purchased by the province for the Highway 107 extension. And so we looked at that, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we did a couple rounds of studying over the last 10 years to conclude that it is much more efficient from a building efficiency perspective to run 1 depot instead of 4. And if you were planning for the same staff, you would ultimately end up with more square footage if you built 4 small depots or 2 small depots instead of 4. And we also found, the building cost savings are, I don't have that number in front of me right now. I can get that for you. It's on the order of hundreds of thousands per year. And also there's operational savings, just I'm going to consider, if you have 4 depots and you need a certain amount of vehicles and you need flexibility in spares. So, if you multiply that flexibility times 4 depots, you can actually have less vehicles if you're in 1 depot, if you follow me. And that goes to equipment that we use, like generators, lighting plants, traffic control signs, all those things. So we can use all those things much more efficiently if we're operating out of 1 depot. But I don't have the exact saving numbers in front of me unless Louis recalls them, but we can get that for you.
Yeah, I think that, from a business plan point of view, when you're looking and you see, the cost of this is a capital project, and then to be able to offset that with, this is a true savings of this big project, which is phenomenal. And I know that we've gone through that through the board workshop that we did, and we did that excellent presentation. So I just wondered, in the business plan, to be able to see some of that rationale is really good. But I loved reading this as it was. Thank you so much.
And as a follow-up, will those savings show up in our ongoing accumulated savings that we report to the UARB?
So any costs associated with it would be built into the budgets going forward. So that would include any debt that we're required to issue, any depreciation, and any costs of operations. We wouldn't specifically highlight a savings because that's not the way our budget's built. It would just be a lower cost if it was cheaper from one way of operating to the new one depot. But there wouldn't be anything specific that you would be able to see in the budget to go, there's a savings right here.
Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
You somewhat, you may want to consider if that belongs in a category to the UARB, because I think that's important to highlight everything Reed just commented on, because it's important.
There is a cost containment process that we
Yes.
go through with the utility review board, so it would likely be through that process.
Okay, that was my cost containment report. Thank you for the wording.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There was no, oh, go ahead, Commissioner Kolomeitsev.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was related to how close are we to our original plan that was approved in 2020 for the 5-year business plan? How closely are we aligning to that, or how far have we veered off?
I may have to get back to you on some of the specifics. We've tried to stay as close alignment as we possibly could to that. There's been some things that would have changed over the years as we introduce new technology, new programs, that type of thing, and address different challenges. But we haven't done, a line by line assessment, if that's what you're looking for.
Not necessarily, just
okay,
looking high level, if
yeah.
there was anything standing out to you.
Right.
Thank you.
There was no motion. Was there, did there need a motion?
Letter, Madam Chair.
Pardon?
I believe there's a proposed motion in the letter on page 28 of the board package.
Yes. I can put the motion on the floor if you like, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Deagle-Gammon.
Move that the Halifax Water Board approve the 24-25 business plan as attached to this report dated February 14th, 2024, subject to non-substantive corrections and amendments, and direct the acting general manager to submit the 24-25 business plan to the Halifax Regional Council. I think that's the motion that we're supposed to do.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I can second.
Commissioner Kolomeitsev, thank you. Oh, okay. Any further questions?
No.
Call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed?
Right.
Oh,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion is carried.
looks like Louis had his hand up there for a minute, though.
Louis?
I did. The actual report that's in the package is dated February. Oh, no, it's February 14th. I thought there was an. Oh, my error. Thank you.
Okay. We'll take it that that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And thank you to the staff. That was a lot of work and very helpful to the board. Item 7, strategic communication plan update. I think we have Jeff and Kenda.
I'm just going to turn the floor over to Jeff for him to deliver this, but I'm here to support.
Good morning, everyone. So today wanted to give you a rundown of our approach on the proactive communications plan. I think it's no secret that every one of the commissioners has admitted and acknowledged that there is a great story to tell within Halifax Water. And so as part of our ongoing commitment to get out there in front of the story and to get engaged with the public, this plan has been being basically developed over the last 12 months so that we can actually get together and talk about what are the real challenges inside the organization. Next slide. So the purpose of this is to basically, the plan is to promote Halifax Water's work that goes beyond the everyday work, which is asset repairs, renewals, extensions, etc. But to actually talk about what Halifax Water is and does and means to the community. And so the scope of the program is all community engagement, education, and awareness work that we do. Next slide. The objective is to build a more proactive communication and engagement strategy that will overall improve our reputation and how it is perceived with all stakeholders. Next slide. There are challenges, of course. Time and competing priorities, limited resources, how we measure success, and the reduction in traditional media outlets. Again, this is about, when I talk about traditional media outlets, we had to create our own channels now more than ever to get the message out. Next slide. So our strategy is to demonstrate the value of our services, people, and the utility by proactively telling our story through a variety of channels, and then leverage the positive work and services provided by Halifax Water to build trust and goodwill with all of our stakeholder groups. Next slide. So these are the goals. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but basically it is to go beyond how we've normally communicated, get into communities, refine our community investment strategy, and build and increase our overall sentiment, positive sentiment with our news media and social media. Refining the approach on stakeholder engagement. So this is something as a team, as an executive team, we've talked about for a while, and this is the whole idea of the 5-year planning cycle. When we are talking to our stakeholders, we are talking to them throughout a cycle, and we need a holistic approach so we can define where stakeholders have input and where we need to be talking and informing and engaging them on what that process is looking forward. And so we say, as we say here, Halifax Water is always delivering on the current IRP and informing the next IRP. So we did the last IRP in 2019. We're in the process of doing a new one. So once the IRP is done, we've got to let our stakeholders know what we're planning, but then we need to engage them on what the next one will look like and how that is developed. Next slide. So this is a kind of a infographic of how we envision the IRP process and where stakeholder engagement comes into play. We have our drivers, we have the planning, we have a 5-year business plan, then we have an annual business plan, and that's all centered around an IRP that then also drives our cost of service, our rates, and it's always a circular process. So we need to be thinking about this the whole time and communicating to our stakeholders in a way that they understand where we are in that process. Next slide. The story starts and ends with our customers, of course. And so again, back to the IRP, if we look at everything we're focused on, we've got a compliance plan, we've got all these different inputs that go in, but it also needs the ability to get buy-in from our public. Next slide. So on the engagement and the planning side of things, we need to be deliberate. We need to anticipate and mitigate risks. We need to be efficient, and we need to focus on messages and determine how we engage. And this is constant. It is time consuming, but it is some of the most rewarding work we can do as a utility in order to be able to help our customers and our community understand the value that we bring as an organization to them. Next slide. So areas for increased focus on and messaging at Halifax Water. We've got our people and culture aspect. We have diversity, equity, inclusion, health, safety, and attraction and retention. From an environment sustainability point of view, we have our regulatory requirements and all the areas that fall within that: green, biosolids, all that stuff. Then there's education and awareness, which we need to really focus on moving forward, which is storm preparation, surface water contamination, youth and family education, school tours and learning, stormwater management, blue-green algae. There's so many different things that that impact the utility, and from a customer perspective, that education and awareness is key. Another key point here is community investment, and I'll speak more of that in a couple of slides. Our work and our value to customers, storm recovery, our investment in infrastructure, and the customer benefits, of course, and then this whole story around growth, which is huge. Next. So how do we communicate the Halifax water story? So there's the Halifax context, one of the oldest cities in with infrastructure that needs to be renewed. We're growing, and we're facing regulatory compliance. So it goes back to the growth, aging infrastructure, and regulatory compliance drivers. We're the cost of providing services. The reality that in our 2019 IRP, we identified that we were going to be having to invest over $4 billion to upgrade infrastructure. Our long-term planning, multiple yet interrelated plans and revenue requirements demand an integrated planning approach. So again, goes back to IRP. Stakeholder engagement, how we drive planning and investment decisions, and where stakeholders actually fit into that model. We need to be build trust and be transparent. So that means more engagement and telling a story that is much more open about how we make decisions and why we make decisions on where infrastructure goes and how it goes and everything else. And then, of course, that means engaging people in the planning cycle. As I said earlier, the IRP is either done or it's being informed by how and when we talk to our customers, the developers, our government partners. All of that needs to be taken into consideration when we're building our story. So we talked about communication channels earlier. To basically create our own, we need to be looking at digital, we need to be looking at mailings, we need to be looking at education and awareness tools, community engagement, which is more physical contact perspective, and of course, community investment and how that can play a bigger role in us representing the positive part of our community. Future building enhanced relationships with customers. So this is one of the areas where we really need to, going forward, focus much more attention on setting a level of expectations for our customers, being able to streamline and triage our customer issues process, looking at monthly billing, more use of the customer portal, the customer connect, activation of business priorities through accounts and service changes. And this includes education on who owns Halifax Water, not-for-profit, the cost of service, and how Halifax Water is regulated. All that needs to be educated and informed with our customers. Next. So then we look at community investment, and an investment in the community should meet most or all of the following things like voluntary work, supports nonprofit charity, demonstrates value to the community, of benefit to the company's customers, and cost of the company. And so that's basically as defined by the London Benchmarking Group, which is one of the leading experts in the world on what community investment looks like. Next. So from our current approach, we do a lot of the key components of what a community investment plan would look like, but we don't actually call it a real community investment plan. It's inconsistent with the organization's purpose or business goals. There's no set criteria or evaluation method for requests, and some programs have very little awareness, and there's no clear governance in place for this stuff. So an in-kind contributions and scholarships is important to include these amounts in the total reported community investment we make. So from a budget perspective, based on regulatory restrictions and the need to contain costs, we recommend that the budget for the charitable donation sponsorships and other community investments remain at the current levels with a focus on alignment with the Halifax Water community investment themes. And in-kind contributions should be tracked, and a budget should be determined based on using 2022-23 as a benchmark. We did a comparison of some of the more well-known programs as compared to H2O. Bell Let's Talk is a major one, of course, and dwarfs the size of some of the others, especially ours. The Nova Scotia Power Heat Fund is another example, and the Fuel for Care that Irving does. They're very similar. I focus in on the heat fund versus H2O. They're almost parallel in terms of their process, especially the administration by the Salvation Army. The only difference is, and we'll go to the next slide. If you look at what the comparison is, H2O, our fund, does not allow for customer donations. So things like bill top-ups and rounding and things like that, and the notion of getting receipts for charitable donations. We don't do that right now. It's basically relies on our own funding and nothing else. Next. So we're recommending that we establish guidelines, and these are just examples, focusing on health and safety, diversity, youth education, provide investment decision-making process. It will engage and enable employees and leverage existing scholarships, and would be informed by industry standards for giving. Different categories, you would have things like charitable donations, you would have community partnerships, and some of the ones we do right now are the water tap program and a partnership with Bicycle NL, for example, or NS, sorry. The corporate initiatives and sponsorships, H2O fund is one, and then the DAL wastewater research is another example of that. Employee giving, I honestly say that our employees give a lot, but from a an overall community investment standpoint, it is lost in the grand scheme of things. We do United Way, we do Water for People, and employees can contribute to the H2O fund as well. So there's an opportunity there. And then the existing educational scholarships, we have a pretty robust scholarship program through the NSCC, and we need to be promoting that aspect much more proactively. Next. So in terms of how we categorize, we would focus on charitable donations, community partnerships, and corporate initiatives. I won't get into that, but there are certain buckets that you would put things into. Next. Having an evaluation criteria is important, which means when somebody asks for support, there's a weighted way to score and decide where the money goes, because it's an endless or unendless task, and we only have certain amount of budget. Next. Governance is key, and so we propose that the board approves the annual budget for community investment, which it does right now. The plan is developed and managed by corporate comms, and with the executive level responsibility provided by the general manager. All community investment will be brought to the general manager for review, and updates to community investment will be provided to the board annually. Next. Recommendations, place a time horizon on commitments. So if we're going to support something for a maximum of 3 years, establish the percentage of commitment from community investment budget. So we're going to do X amount of our regulated or non-regulated business. And right now, this comes out of our non-regulated business. So we'd have to determine what that would be. Thinking more broadly about the H2O fund in terms of inviting customers to bill roundup, et cetera, totally at their discretion, but it would be an option, and they could get customer donations or customer receipts. And then measuring and tracking, how we track all this, how we report it. It becomes much more efficient and effective because it's all in one place. Next. Questions, feedback?
Thank you, Jeff. That was fantastic. And as you started, the board has been very interested in the ability for Halifax Water to spread the good news stories as well. Will the slide deck be available to the board?
Yes, it should be in there now. If it's not there, we will make sure it is there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kent?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Jeff, thank you for this. I know it certainly took you, a lot of energy and commitment to getting this together. And there's areas of it that I feel is very corporate. And then there's areas of it that feels closer to the community. And I think that when I have put forward concerns around communications, whether it's at this table or board of police or regional council, it's been for me the motivation to speak to it is around how do we really connect with the people that we're serving, right? And so super important. Love the way you've identified it and drilled down on it, but what I'm not hearing is how do you get that out? The message is, I think, on those pieces are going to get, formalized and created. And when I think about how do we show the public what Halifax Water is doing, I see it as when we have a large project and the street open, we need to take some pictures of our people doing that work and with a caption of why. when we see our people doing extraordinary over and above, we need to share that. When I see some accolades that come out, we need to share it, but sharing it in a way that is most utilized now these days. And yes, we've lost some of the traditional mediums for news, but we have to capture the social media. We really
Yes.
do. It's as this is somebody who's speaking from had almost 20 years and working and communicating with the public, that it took me half of that to even say, yeah, I'm willing to use social media. It took me a long time to warm up to it. And we all can agree that there are layers to social media that can be difficult, but we can also, use it as a push out, not necessarily the way that we garner the feedback. So you have to
Yeah.
have both. But the sooner we can do that, the better. When I put out in my newsletter a picture of um, the big reservoir on Mount Edward Road, and we had a sneak peek into the condition it was in. I put that out in the public, and I put that out in social media and in my monthly newsletters, and it garnered attention. Mostly people were, and rightly so, surprised to see the deterioration inside. But they also then started to realize, well, this is the kind of infrastructure we need. We don't want to lose that reservoir. So, of course, you have to invest in it. And I think that generally speaking, that's where things are going to go when we start to highlight these kinds. So what I'm not seeing in this particular strategy is the and maybe I missed it because I did get distracted at one point when you were doing your presentation, but and maybe we'll see it come forward. But what kind of presence do you have within your complement of your team, social media experts, because they are out there? I am not a social media expert. I'm faking it. I'm getting by. I'm, I'm getting. I'm realizing that it's helpful when somebody else posts something that's like, oh yeah, look at that. I got to get that out too, and I'll use the same thing. But there are incredible specialists who do this full time and who know it. And if we don't have it in house, are we going to consult with something like that? I'm just curious, what do you have in your toolbox now and on your team to help you move into that new realm of media?
So that's everything you've said, I totally agree with. And I think the nuance here is that I just gave in this presentation just a very high level of what you'll see in the actual full presentation is much more in depth. What I would say is that we are focusing more on social media, but where we've had a deficit, and this has been something that every place I've ever worked has been a challenge, is video and photography. The picture tells 1,000 words, the video tells even more, and having that aspect and tools to actually build out your social media presence. So we're building on that. We do have our Facebook page. We do have our X/Twitter account. We're going to start using LinkedIn more because we have priorities around attraction and retention of our employees. There are multiple channels that we have not been able to take advantage of, but we have good stories to tell about our employees, about women who work in the sector, and what a great place it is to work for a diverse workforce. Like there are a number of things that we have not been promoting that we will start to do more of. So and we welcome all the feedback in the world for you guys. So we really appreciate it. But yeah, I think that's the gap here right now, is that I think you guys need to see the full package of what we're talking about versus just the high level I went into. And because one of the things that you'll see is that we've done a research into our where we are with public sentiment on social media, and we are resoundingly neutral because we are so proactive on public service announcements, which are good news from a proactive and letting the community know, but it's not anything to feel good about. So we deem it as neutral. So there are different things that we certainly need to be focused on, and that aspect of social media is going to be huge moving forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to come back after others have had a chance.
Okay, I was going to ask if that answered your question, but you'll come back. Vice Chair Jiggle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Jeff. This is, yeah, it's a lot of work. I'm glad you said this is a high level look, and that there's a full package coming. So, what is the full package that's coming, and what is the expectation of the commission? So, this is a communications plan and strategy that, is it at the next Board of Commissioners meeting that there's an endorsement strategy, or is it already in play?
So from our perspective, it's already in play. We want you to have it and understand it, and also provide feedback on it as much as possible. This is a fluid thing we're working on here. Like nothing's set in stone, because we need to change priorities just as quickly as the next priority comes and goes. And like once we get our social media up, what's the next thing? And so the big thing for me right now is community investment on social media. But I would love to hear more from you guys on what other things would be needed on this.
So just to be clear then, so you talk about a full package. So are we going to get a report? Are we going to get a strategy that you want us to read through and provide feedback?
So you will see a full presentation, which is much more robust on what we're talking about at a high level here.
When will we see that, Jeff?
I thought it was in the package, but probably it wasn't, and it should be.
So your PowerPoint was just uploaded to Diligence, but the a report is not there.
Yeah, there is no formal report.
Okay. All right. I misunderstood full package with it being something different than the PowerPoint.
No, it's a full presentation.
Okay. So between,
would you like us to put it on the next agenda, Jeff, to provide feedback, or
that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Whatever you prefer.
Okay, how about we'll take it away and decide where it fits with committee work and board agendas, knowing March can be a full agenda as well. But I think there will be some great feedback, because it's a great presentation.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in the moment to be able to give construction feedback, I guess, at this point. Thank you.
And if I may, I know we'll be trying to plan a workshop probably in May-ish. I want to put that out as a potential topic, if you want to give that consideration as we kind of vet through what's going to the different committees and that type of thing. But it could be a workshop item as well.
Great idea, Kenda. Okay, I'm going to go to Commissioner Russell first, and then I'll go back to Commissioner Kent.
Thank you very much. One of the things that we saw a number of years ago is that if you put something in the newspaper, everybody gets it. Now nobody gets it. And there are a million different streams out there. One of them is social media. It will cover 25-30% of people. So it's great that you're focusing on that and you're building up that capability. You also have the ability to get into effectively every customer's house through the bill. I'm wondering if you're going to be leveraging that as part of your communication strategy.
That is already a part of our communication strategy in terms of how we use the bill inserts. One of the things we're trying to balance out here is the cost of mailing and the avenue of the Customer Connect portal as well, and how we use both to connect with our customers. Usually we'll do, every second month, we'll do a water talk that gets inserted into our bill. But we were very select in what we talk to our customers about. And usually it's related to our services as much as promoting ourselves. And the question we have to ask is internally how comfortable we are with going from just very tactile ideas of how we share information with our customers versus promoting the work we do with our customers. And so, and then that reflects the same way in our Customer Connect portal. We have ability to send out multiple messages and multiple times, but why would we alienate a customer base by over talking to them as well? So, but I get your point, Commissioner Russell. That is very much on our minds as well, how we go directly to our customers and leverage that relationship.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cuddle?
Thank you. Thank you, Colleen. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to diving into this a bit more, commenting on it right now at this high level and not having had the opportunity to look at the presentation beforehand. I'm sure I'm missing a few details along the way. But off the top, I think there's some elephants in the room in terms of understanding our customers. And one is about the increasing cost of living that everybody is experiencing. And so I really appreciate the, looking at the community investment piece and how we can support those in need. But right now, the majority of people are feeling a real squeeze. And I think there's a misunderstanding in the general public about how Halifax Water operates. I often get questions thinking you're a for-profit agency. They don't understand that you're not for profit. They don't understand that we can't, take money from ratepayers to subsidize other ratepayers. Some of the basic pieces about how we operate and kind of what our mandate is are largely misunderstood, including, that whole piece about the grant in lieu from Halifax Water to HRM, which is why I asked it in this public forum, because some people actually believe that Halifax is using Halifax Water as a revenue generator. So, these things are all complex, and how we position that and communicate it is going to be vitally important, because I think that if it's not done, if it's not done right, and we don't kind of understand what the general feelings are out there in the community right now, this could be received in the wrong way. And so I think we need to, any communication around that community investment fund has to be done with a lot of forethought. And the other piece is around growth. And this is this is something that's really concerning me as we look at all these rising costs that we're experiencing within the organization, and how this will affect our ratepayers potentially. I think it's going to be a difficult pill for a lot to swallow, and and I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for that right now, but I think in terms of communication strategy, again, it's something that we need to kind of dissect and communicate in a way that's not blind to kind of the public feelings out there. I will. So that's kind of my comments on that piece. Back to our social media, I see, like on Facebook, surprisingly, only like, I think you only have 2,600 followers on Facebook, which is surprisingly low, I think. But I greatly appreciate the way it's being used. It's mostly for getting out messaging, right, in real time, and you are very, very good at targeting that to the different counselors and their districts when there's something relevant, and I appreciate that greatly. In terms of communicating these other pieces about our story, our customers, obviously we have to. It's a totally different. It's a real departure from what we're doing now. And one of the things I have enjoyed is with HRM is our new approach to doing stories, like using staff. Like I don't know where we found Ali, who's doing all the solid waste videos for us. But she's great, and like they're real questions, like what do you do with your expired yogurt? They're short, they're to the point, and they're real questions. So it'd be good to kind of like tease out like what are the real questions that people have about Halifax Water and our systems and how we can connect in that meaningful way. So I look forward to further discussions on that. And lastly, I don't know if we have like do we use Instagram? Because I don't see an active account on Instagram for Halifax Water. I don't know why I don't see that, but just wondering if you could answer that question. Thank you.
We don't use Instagram right now, and one of the reasons is because it's so visual. And one of our Achilles heels right now is the lack of visuals that we actually are capturing. And so one of our first priorities for this year is to actually establish protocol standards and start getting out in the field to make sure that we're capturing the right stuff and that and ensuring that it's appropriate. But to your point, Commissioner Cuttle, Instagram is huge. It's very visual and much more established for video and images.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Cuttle. Great comments. Commissioner Kent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, a lot of comments that the other commissioners have raised, all sort of in my mind as well. I think the Kenda's suggestion around the workshop would be a really good time to really get into the meat of some of this and an open conversation. I'll just remind you of the capacity that a lot of councillors have newsletters and monthly, twice a year, and monthly. Often we have monthly electronic newsletters and such. It's all utilized, easily utilized. But let's. I think we should get into that. The other piece that Jeff, you talked about, to further have conversations. I'd like to maybe take a time to have a coffee with you and just talk about some of and I think councillors in general have the unique space of interfacing with the public every single day. And how does that translate into the kinds of conversations we have? And one of my rules of thumb is to approach it as if I was sitting at their kitchen table. How would I speak about the issues that are happening? And so it's just food for thought for now, but I would be happy to check in with you on a one-on-one, but I also really encourage us to have this conversation at the workshop if we can. I think that's the best next step. Thanks.
I appreciate all the feedback and anything you have to offer, either in a group or one-on-one. I'd love to hear it.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll certainly take that away because I think the workshop idea is a great one. Okay, that brings us to the end of today's agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioner Kent. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care. Good
Thank
job.
you. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.